Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to BHI Show on Passion Radio. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today, the 18th of January already. And I am with, because it is a BHI show, Lesley with friends, and I am with, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Marcia. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Excellent. Well, it's nice to have you back on the platform.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be back, actually.
Excellent. And we have got a fantastic guest who is going to be talking to us all about our mental health. We have got Dr. Delroy Hall, who we are going to be coming back to in the next few minutes. But while we go back, let's just have a little conversation about mental health, Marcia. What does that feel like to you?
Well, for me, it means the different kind of the different context of my own life and how I'm feeling from day to day.
Yeah.
I'm going to be transparent and say that my mental health of late hasn't been that good.
Yeah.
Been a lot of stress. And I don't know whether, this time of year as well has, I think that, the seasonal affective disorder side, whether I'm actually experiencing some of that.
Right.
It's and it's new for me. I don't normally feel
Is it
this low.
Right. Okay.
There you go. It was.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. To our audience, we have got Marcia Hilton on, and her mic, we just had a few technical problems, but she's back with us. Marcia, sorry, I asked you the question regarding mental health. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot of different things, actually, because with if I take myself, for example, some days are good, some days are bad. And of late, I feel that my mental health of late hasn't been that good, to be honest. And I was wondering whether it is due to there's something called a seasonal affective disorder. I have felt quite low.
Wow. Okay, that's
and
a question for Dr.
Yeah, because
Delroy.
apparently it's a thing. It's apparently real. People feel low at this time of year.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to do things to make myself feel better.
Okay.
So one of the things actually that's not so good at the moment, and I think that's probably the catalyst for it, is the fact that I'm not sleeping very well.
Right.
So it's looking at things to, like go to bed earlier, get off my phone. So
yes,
because I do, scroll
Sleep
a lot.
with your phone.
Yeah. So it's having to do, just be a bit more intentional about the things that I'm doing so that I can rest better. No, definitely. I totally hear that. I am working on leaving my phone downstairs, and while I go to bed, and do a little bit of meditation and go off to sleep, and that, which I'm finding is really helping, and with my mental health. But mental health, there's good and there's bad mental health, but we've all got mental health. But these are questions we can ask, we can talk to with Dr. Delroy Hall, who is going to be joining us in a few minutes. But let me just tell you a little bit about BHI. So BHI is a charity. We are based in Leeds and Chapeltown, and we're always looking for volunteers to come and join BHI. But if you're interested in joining us, then just get in touch. You can get in touch with us on any of our social media platforms. You can come to BHI and just knock on the door and say, hi, I'd like to do some volunteering. BHI, they've got a lot. We've got a lot going on at the moment. BHI has just started Soul Steppers walking group. Now, if you're out there and you live in the Leeds area and you thought about, I'm fed up of being in this house, I want to do something different for 2024,
And I would love to start a walking group. So if you want to be a part of our walking group, then we're here on a Wednesday and a Friday, 6 p.m. We meet at Potter Newton Park at the corner junction with Spencer Place. And we are walking. It doesn't matter what weather it is, we are walking. Yesterday we was out. It was brilliant because you know what? The lady said at the end of that walk, we've walked 3 miles. It didn't even feel like 3 miles. I didn't even think about it. You know, how fantastic is that?
That's awesome.
You know, and that is so good for your mental health, you know, doing something different, taking yourself away from those scenarios where you're feeling a little bit, you know, down or upset or, you know, but it's just something for you to think about. BHI is also doing a boot camp, which is on a Saturday morning, down on Chapeltown Road, down at the Rec, at the park in the tennis court. Starts at 10 a.m. and they have got what's it called, an instructor, and it started last week Saturday and he absolutely fantastic. Oh my goodness, I was hurting.
I might have to check that
I
one
was hurting. The Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I was like, wow. Yeah, so I really did the work. But yeah, be a part of what's going on within the community. But that is BHI. So you can check us out on all our social media platforms, which is Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and just come round to BHI and do some volunteering. Anyway, that's enough about me and BHI. Let's bring our guest on. Woo, 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 woo. We have got Mr. Delroy. No, let me say the proper title. Delroy. Dr. Delroy Hall in the room. Hi, Delroy.
Hey, good afternoon, Lesley and team. Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, Delroy?
I'm pretty good now, all things considered. I'm good. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Can you see Marcia? Yeah, here we go.
Oh, right, yes. Right, good. Good to see you.
So, Delroy, thank you so much, first of all, for being on the platform with us.
Okay.
And me and Marcia were just having a little conversation regarding our mental health. And, you know, so the question is, I know we've got good and bad mental health, but what can we do regarding our mental health?
Okay. I suppose the first thing in terms of mental health still has this kind of stigma around it. So I use the term mental fitness, which is a little bit more user friendly.
Okay.
In fact, I did some. Well, I think you know that I do a live broadcast. I did a whole series on mental fitness quite some time ago. So, mental fitness for me is really the ability, being aware, being present, and the ability to understand and manage how I think, behave, and how I act with people.
Right.
So, and that's kind of keeping on top of it, really, in terms of mental fitness. And as the name mental fitness suggests, like physical fitness, you have to work at it. It doesn't just happen. And I think what we have done, we've taken our mental health, mental fitness for granted, but there's a lot of things that can affect it in life, really. So we have to be quite intentional.
Okay. When you say we've taken it for granted, what does that mean? Can you expand on that?
Well, we don't think about it, do we? We only think about our mental well-being. I think it's more, okay, we're talking about it now, but time past, we never really thought about our psychological well-being at all.
No.
It was just taken for granted, you know. I think I was unwell about 5 years ago, and I've never really thought about my immune system. I think about it a lot now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there's a lot of things that we've taken for granted that we just didn't really give much thought until something happens, and then we have to think about it. Yeah. A bit like people who have never taken their health or looking after the body seriously. They eat the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, and da-da-da-da. And then when something happens, I need to cut back on that. I need to watch this, I need to watch that. And some people who would never eat salads or rabbit food start to eat it because they realise it's good for you. Yeah. In time past, they wouldn't eat it, you know, so yeah.
And how can we get people talking regarding their mental health? I think that's so important.
It is. I think there's a few ways. Well, unfortunately, we only start talking about it when we become unwell. or if we go to, you know, have events like this, or we notice somebody behaving not normally. So we realise that either people are a bit withdrawn or they're a bit more louder than usual, and there doesn't seem to be any reason for it. So we might start asking them questions. I remembered many years ago now when I was asked to look after a men's group for a short period of time, and the guy had done it for 2 or 3 years before, couldn't get anything out of them. So there was about 15 men of various ages, and so I thought, right, well, what am I going to do? So what I did, and I still do it now, in initial meeting, I got loads of index cards, and I said to the guys, I don't want you putting names on it, but what are the 3 things that really bother you? And in 20 minutes, the guy said to me, you've got more out of them in 20 minutes than I've done in the last 3 years.
Wow.
And so then what I did then, but certainly currently, you use those cards, because some of the issues are the same. So then you use that to kind of facilitate conversation. And that's one of the ways in which you get men talking.
Yeah.
A very simple exercise, which is anonymous, but then in the room they'll like recognise, well, oh, so I remember one of them, I'll never forget it. So this was churchmen, and one of them was fed up with my wife keep nagging me, and that man wasn't the only one who was feeling that way. So we're able to talk about things. So yeah, I think there's ways in which you can talk about things, and also I think it's a skill of the facilitator to then move the relationship from that level to a deeper level.
Okay. That's really interesting. Can I just ask you?
Can you speak a little bit because I can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, good, right.
Okay. I just wanted to just to ask you, when you're working with people who have struggle with their mental health, what are the common sort of misunderstandings that people have? What are the misconceptions that people have about mental health, and how would you tackle that? How would you clarify that for people?
So the misunderstanding, is it the person who's suffering from mental health or their family or friends?
I think family and friends and the wider community. Yeah,
I think one of the things, well, in terms of Caribbean, African and Asian culture, we have some stuff mixed up with the spirits and all that type of thing, and I'm not too sure how I understand it because I'm in that culture, but I don't think that helps people. To say that either they're demon possessed or they're full of the spirit, that doesn't help people, because all that does, it condemns people, make people feel worse than they actually feel already. So in terms of educating folks, that comes with time, and you've got some families who are very open to this has happened. Again, I recall a particular viewpoint that if you had a breakdown, you're full of the demons and all that type of stuff, and then particular family member had a mini breakdown, and the mother's view changed overnight, understanding that it wasn't to do with the spirit, but maybe her daughter had been struggling with stuff with the family for a long time, and then they just kind of ended it. Her kind of psychological well-being couldn't take it anymore. So I think it's education, it's conversation, but also if the person has a view of it's spirit or demon possessed, is actually being able to not shoot them down in flames, but kind of go alongside with them, because I think they may have held that view for years. It's been a part of their upbringing, a part of their religious understanding. So it's been able to draw alongside. And I suppose I benefited being once a pastor, that I trained as a psychotherapist, so I was very much aware of counselling, psychology, and what happens to people, as well as what was happening in our culture as well. So I was able to kind of bridge the two worlds.
Okay. Yeah, because I think sometimes if just like you said there, if you've not had any sort of experience of somebody close to you or yourself having a mental health issue, then it's easy to kind of like demonize it, isn't it? And I'm thinking about one of my own, because I have a child that did have a breakdown, and even myself, I, coming from a medical background, I didn't understand it, and actually I didn't want to until it was in my face, and I had to deal with it. I
think one of the things in life, of course, is being able, when things happen, is to be able to accept it. But also I wanted to say, for those who are listening, that poor mental health is on a spectrum. So you've got the extreme end where people call maybe psychosis, where people really, in terms of, well, it's interesting because it's term psychosis, but in the world of psychiatry, there's an understanding of spiritual emergence or spiritual awakening. It's not spoken about much, but there's literature written about. There's an understanding, and I've always understood psychosis as, it's difficult to interact with them, but people who experience that, but I've always understood psychosis as a form of language that quite often we don't fully understand. Right. So I would say to you, there's been times that my mental health has been poor, partly to do with the levels of work, the levels of stress I was under, but I was able to deal with it, and I dealt with it through non-medical means. And how I dealt with it was, I'm an avid journal keeper, so the journaling for me was a process whereby I could express how I was feeling without insulting anybody, and also as a pastor, former pastor, that you're seen out there on a kind of, people put you on a pedestal, but you're human and you're normal, you have stresses and strains and so forth. So for me, the process of writing was really helpful in keeping me balanced and grounded.
No, that's excellent, because it's nothing to be ashamed of, is it? It's nothing to be ashamed of if you've got mental health, because when you can't deal with certain things, you've just got to, in a certain way, you've just got to find a certain way to actually deal with that situation. The best way you can.
And I think I remember when I was kind of coming to the end of my time as being a pastor, I remember talking to, because I was a regional bishop, so I was talking to one of the pastors, and one of the guys said to me after the meeting, he said, "You're a bit open, weren't you?" Because what I said was that I think during my time as a pastor, there were times I was depressed. I knew I was. But what I did during those times, I stopped visiting, I took myself off the preaching rota, and I got some rest. And I don't mean depressed in the sense of months and months and months, but I knew that I was at a real low ebb. And quite often when I look back, it was to do with the fact I'd not taken enough rest. And I'm not a warrior, so that's one thing I didn't do. Humorously, one of the things I learned very quickly as a pastor, so I was a pastor for 30 years, there was no point in somebody pouring out their heart to me, and at night I can't sleep because of their problems and they're fast asleep. I didn't see the point in that. That was just that was nonsense. So I didn't get into that at all. But the pressures, the demands, the expectations, which quite often now are unrealistic, and the hours that pastors work generally are well over 40 hours.
Wow.
So I just said that, there were times I think that I was on the close of being depressed, but I was able to deal with it without going to the doctors because I kind of knew what to do. So mental health for me, it's a spectrum. So you can have the levels of stress at one end, and then you can have at the other end where people have been putting up with things for so long, the body just says, right, enough. That's it. The mind says, enough, I've had enough. And then it collapses. But what can happen, if we're talking about a breakdown, what can happen in the right hands, the person's life can be better after it. Because in a sense, you can live without all the pretense.
Right.
This has happened, your world has collapsed, but in the right hand of a good therapist and the support you need, your life post-breakdown can be far better than it was before.
But you say to get a good therapist.
It can be.
You said to get a good therapist.
I think I've seen individuals who've gone through stuff without a therapist, and I just wonder. I'm sure that some people have gone through it really, really well, and I'm talking about. It's going to sound really critical now. It's going to sound a bit critical, but I found that when church folk haven't sought those help, they might have got through it, but they're just a bit off centre. Right. Not always, but often. Whereas I felt if they'd been able to get some of these psychological services that are out there, and sometimes you have to pay for them, and it can be a bit pricey, but I just think, you know what, if it's about your life and well-being, make the investment. I've said that to people for many years. Make the investment in your life.
Absolutely.
It's not forever.
Absolutely. It's interesting as well, isn't it? Because, you know, like if you take the US culture, everybody's going for therapy. They see the value in it. And I think sometimes, you know, here, the UK, we're not there quite yet, are we? And so many people, you know, look at, do you think it's about stigma? Do they think it's an element of shame where people don't go, that thing about not wanting to talk?
Yeah, that's so
and
true.
You know, keep everything, you know, in the family, don't chat out your business, you know, that kind of thing.
Of course, yeah.
Why do we do that?
It's that and more. I just think it's a shame of it, and also there's a lack of understanding. So I've heard people, you know, what can the therapist tell me that I don't already know? And it's not about the therapist telling you anything, really.
Absolutely.
It's being able to tell your story, because quite often that story's been locked in your body and it's caused problems. So it's been able to tell you, because sometimes, you know, people have never told their story, they said they've never heard it. And it's only when they start to articulate it, they realise, the amount of people I've met over the years, that people realise, gosh, you know what, I realise I've been traumatised from a kid. I realised the relationship I was in has been abusive for 10, 15 years, and I didn't realise it. And it's only as they start to tell their story, that they realise, you know what, I put up with this thing for X amount of years, and I didn't know. So I think being able to find a counsellor or therapist who will give you that space and time to talk through your story is really helpful.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that's so important. And it's and like you said, you know, it's for you. It's for yourself, you know. So to sit down, even like, you know, to get a therapist, fantastic. But, you know, like if you trust, you know, a friend or a group of friends where you can, you know, just open up and just be you, you know, doing that's fantastic as well.
Yeah, you know? It's so healing. It's healing, isn't it?
It's interesting you say that, Lesley, because we're in this kind of dilemma, partly because of people of colour were in the West. And I'm always reminded of the quote by John Henrik Clarke, who said that black people need to remember Western civilization wasn't created for us.
Wow. So
therefore we live in an environment that wasn't created for us. Hence, I've said sometimes that's why some of us are so sick. That's one. But we come from cultures whereby we got through things in community. So for example, grieving, with Nine Night and all that type of stuff. We know we get through it together as a community by going through it together. Neuroscience has just kind of fallen upon discovered the idea, which cultures have known for centuries. We grieve together better in community than on our own.
Yeah.
So therapy is a part of a breakdown of Western society, because you go to some cultures, you say to them what counsellor or therapist, that word is not their language. So part of seeking a therapist here in the West is that there's been a breakdown in relationships, because we're here in the West, and I suspect had we been in other contexts, we'd sought help in different ways. So as just comes to mind, I've not seen the documentary, but my supervisor tells me of a BBC documentary called Black Schizophrenia from years ago. And what happened, people that came from the Caribbean, not everybody, but quite a few were diagnosed with schizophrenia and hospitalised, went back to the Caribbean, not a sign of it again ever.
Wow.
So you could say it could be misdiagnosis, one, but I think you'll know that in certainly in Jamaica, I guess in other islands as well, they have this idea that when you go to England, it turns you mad. So there's this idea.
So
both of you are laughing because you know there's this idea within the Caribbean psyche. You go to Britain, and it turns you fool. Because of the conditions we have to live in and and so forth.
Yeah, that's so interesting because we were just having, a conversation before we came on air, and we was talking about, this is our time for us to. Can you hear me? This is our time for us to like hibernate, and our year starts like in April, when it starts getting warmer. And I think that is so lighter. Yeah, that is so true. That is so interesting. Thank you for that, Delroy.
Yeah, I don't know if any studies have been done on it. In terms of kind of psychological well-being and so forth. But so in terms of cold, for example, I've just started open water swimming, and the water can be cold. And I told them I'd swim in it's a lake it's outside Sheffield, and I said I'll stay with you till the end of October, because some of them swim all the year round, some of them don't wear wetsuits.
Wow.
And I said, listen, I've got Caribbean genes, we don't do cold water. We don't do it.
Exactly. But they say cold water actually is good for you. It's good for your brain. I'm reading this brain book at the moment, and it's just amazing. But it's saying, when you have your shower, and then to turn it around and put it on cold and stand there as long as you can, because that is really good for your for diabetes. It's very good for high blood pressure. And I'm like, wow, so interesting.
Well, I'm going to say, Lesley, that might take more effort to convince black folk of that than psychologists or therapists. But I do hear you. Yes, I do hear, because I'm aware of some of the science around cold water, cold showers. So yeah.
No, that's excellent.
So are you still doing the open water swimming now?
Not at the moment. I'm still swimming, but now what? No, sorry. No, I'm not. I just slipped in the kind of little pathway there, but no, I'm not. I'll start again end of March, beginning of April.
Wow. Yeah. No, well done.
That's brave with it. Yeah, that's well done.
So, Delroy, somebody's struggling, or what are tips we can give people who they just don't know where to turn? And everything just seems to be getting on top of them.
Sure. Do you know, the first thing you can do is to admit you're struggling. If you don't do that, you'll just keep struggling, and any offers to help, you just kind of bat it away. And I think what I would say to, if anybody's listening, and you know inwardly that you're struggling, we can only struggle for so long. And I say to individuals, we can either be intentional about our change, or a crisis makes us change. And I would suggest that you avoid the crisis and be intentional. The problem with the crisis, of course, is that it can take months to recover. Yeah. So you will know that Caribbean people, African people, Asian people, we work very, very hard. We're reluctant to go to the doctors for help to be signed off. So by the time we get to medical service, we are so unwell, we're signed off for weeks and months. I say to folks, it's better to be off for 2 or 3 weeks with stress than for a year.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's not just, the time is one thing, but it's the chaos that it does to your body and your family if you're off for a year.
Yeah.
When in fact it could be avoided. Somebody I know, close, I shan't say who, school teacher, he was aware that loads of his peers, when they got to 20 years, they went to the doctors and had 3 months off. It was a kind of unspoken thing that many did. And he didn't. And he crashed about 2 years later, and he left his job. He was a deputy head, I think it was, or the head of the maths department. He crashed. And he says he wished he'd gone to the doctors and taken the time. Because he wasn't out of work, but he did supply for a year, which I guess is another way of dealing with it. But he realises that the crisis could have been avoided.
Yeah.
And I think if you can avoid the crisis, avoid it. However, lots of people, when they get to a crisis and they get through it, recognise it's one of the best things that happened to them. But you can avoid it.
Yeah.
So first thing, the first thing is to admit that something is wrong.
Yeah.
And actually, what you could do, and there's no now, trying to get a doctor's appointment, you can wait forever and a day.
Yeah.
However, you can go to the doctors and you could ask if there's any support they could give without medication. They can do that. If you know that something is wrong, but you intuitively know that if you continue this way, you're going to hit a brick wall, counsellors are really good for giving you ways of coping before you get to the crisis. So I say to individuals, 4 sessions with a counsellor is far better than being with a counsellor for a year.
Yeah.
4 sessions of some self-help strategies, methods, ways of being is far better than waiting till you get to a crisis. You've got to work through all the emotion and all that type of stuff. And also it's cheaper.
Definitely.
So acknowledging that you're struggling and then getting help, either medical help, psychological help, or if you're somebody like me who reads and put things into operation, that's another way as well. But it might mean if it's job related, you really do need to go to work and get some time off, because quite often workplaces don't shift or change to suit you.
Mm-hmm.
Quite often they don't. So then it's just taking some time out. Yeah, just to get a bit of rest. So when I was hospitalised 5.5 years ago, I was in hospital for 3 days, but I know I needed those 3 days to be still.
Right.
Because if I was at home, I would be pottering around. I know I would be, because that's my nature. But being in hospital, I basically, in Caribbean terms, I had to keep my skin quiet.
All right.
Yeah. And it was, I realised at the time it was so beneficial. It really, really was. 3 days in hospital, I had to be still, and I knew my body just recovered or started to recover from that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting though, isn't it? Because it's like, if we don't listen to the signs, our body's going to do it for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, somebody said we can ignore our emotions, but we can't ignore our body.
Right.
And what we do quite often, and I was guilty of it, I ignored my body.
Yeah.
So, and had I taken, it's a long story which I won't go into, but had I listened to my, sometimes, we get thoughts, impressions, impulses to do certain things and we don't. And it's later on as it gets stronger and then it starts to affect our bodies. But had I listened to my thoughts and ideas, and I'll be honest with you, Heather Nelson was one, and Bridget kept saying to me, why are you still pastoring? What are you still doing here? I can say it now because they've passed and nobody can say anything to them. Sadly they have passed, and I don't mean that in terms
I know.
because they're somebody people I really kind of looked up to. But they said to me, why are you still here? You should have left a long time ago. And I knew 2013, 2014, I should have made the decision to go, and I didn't, and I stayed. And then 5 years later, I ended up in hospital with really bad eczema and shedding skin, and that could have been avoided.
Wow.
So I think sometimes we intuitively know, but we don't respond to it. What will people say? What will people think? What will my family think? What will my friends think? And I'll be letting people down, so we remain stuck. And certainly we've got a kind of loyal personality and don't let people down. We stay with it. And in fact, when you do crash, you don't let people down anyway. They carry on with their lives anyway. So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So your tip is basically start listening to your body.
Yeah. Learn to listen to your body. Yeah. Before it gets to In fact, maybe then learn to listen. And maybe then, if you're listening and you're hearing your body, then maybe I'd be saying you had thoughts and ideas beforehand, but you just didn't respond to it.
I think sometimes people think, they've got to keep going.
Absolutely.
It's that
And we're part of a culture that will just keep going.
Yeah.
We're sick. We were sick unto death, and we just keep going.
Yeah.
But it's true. You know what? Me personally, I really do try to listen to my body, because Yeah, I don't want to. I want to listen to my body and be as healthy as I can be. But I know it's not that easy, because when you're, living in a family where they're all dependent on you.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
It is.
To do. And just having that time for yourself.
So say again.
And having the time for yourself to do that.
Yes. Well, gosh, this could be another conversation another time. This whole thing around people pleasing is a killer.
Yeah.
It really is a killer. That and again, I think I've been guilty of it. I guess lots of people listening have been guilty of it as well. But it's a killer.
Yeah.
Really, really is.
So I suppose then we've just got to write down what is actually important for us to do at that time, rather than taking on all these different challenges, all these different things from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Evaluate them.
And learn to say no. Yeah.
Evaluate them and learn to say no.
Yeah, and I think for lots of us, again, those of us in the care profession, so teachers, doctors, nurses, counsellors, therapists, pastors, we have difficulty saying no without feeling guilty.
Yeah. So
we have to learn to say no and not feel guilty. And I'm there now anyway.
Yeah, I'm there.
So for example, so what I did at for me, New Year's Eve, I don't have to endure watch night services anymore. I endured them as a pastor, and so now I'm at home on my own with my journal. And what I did this year for the first time, I had my 2023 diary, and because stuff you've done in January, February, March, you forget it.
Yeah.
But and again, like all so I started journaling in 1999. I kept all them. I've kept all my journals since my diary since the 80s. So I've got loads of diaries, and it tells a story. So what I did 2023, sat at my desk with paper and pen. I thought, let me just look through 2023, and it didn't take too long before I realised, Delroy, you've been too busy with appointments, and now I need to, because I've been working for myself, and I want to kind of get ahead of the game and be good at what I do. So the mornings now is I go to the gym, I go to the pool, and then I spend the next 2 or 3 hours studying, reading, writing, researching. That's mornings. There's only 2 clients I've got in the morning, because one, the job that he does he can't see during the day or the evening, and then somebody else is abroad, so it's a kind of time difference thing. But other than that, I don't see people in the morning now.
Right.
I think that's really
if
good.
I want to meet people, it's in the afternoon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So mornings now for me is reading time, study time, thinking time, researching time. So.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, and it's fantastic that you've got to that stage where you can actually, say no, and and sort out your calendar so it looks like that. And but like a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, some people can't do that.
Yes,
and they've got all this different trauma going on they're juggling different things, and they want to say no but they can't say no, and what can, and maybe financially they can't go and get a therapist. So what are things would you advise that person to actually do?
Okay, I think now you can't do this on the hoof, so you really have to you need to take time out. And I don't mean time out might not be a day, but it could be half a day or maybe 2 or 3 hours. And and in doing that, turn off the blessed phone. Don't have any distractions. And what I did, I looked through my diary. And in fact, somebody could do that as well. You could look through your diary and just look at the last few months.
Yeah.
And it's been able to. Now, the reason why I said take time out, and this is important. If we're in the mix of things, we can't see quite often what we're doing. But if we're able to take a step back and look at what we're doing, we can possibly see gaps in areas where we can either say no or do less. But it really is about stepping back and having a look.
Yeah.
So it could be, for example, could it be, say, like the week, so you don't work at the weekends, it's a busy family, but is there something you can do at the weekend that just gives you a few hours break and rest from it?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to cost much.
Yeah.
Or anything. In Sheffield, I guess in Leeds and other parts of the country, if you go into Google and just put in what's on and the name of your city, the amount of stuff that's going on in the city at any one time, certainly at the weekends, and not everything you have to pay for.
Yeah.
It's amazing, really. So sometimes it's just getting out of the environment. Sometimes people, so you're going back to the work situation, sometimes, usually men, but not always, you know, the salary, the mortgage and everything is tied to your salary. So taking a break or leaving is perhaps not on the option today. However, if you're working in an environment whereby it's really difficult, I remember when I was working at the university, I remember working with a member of staff who wanted to leave, but she said to me, you were talking, she said, I can't leave now, but I said, could you leave in a year's time? She said, yeah.
Wow.
So maybe you can't do it now, but you can be thinking of strategies. And the whole thing about taking the time out is giving yourself the time to think.
Yeah.
We can't think when we're hurried. So it's just so the time out either is, if you've got a family, young family, I remember there was a medical doctor, a documentary of an African woman, 4 children, young children, and her husband died, and she was studying to be a doctor.
Wow.
And she passed it, but she was really disciplined. What she did, when she put the children to bed, she went to bed. But she got up 2 or 3 hours early in the morning to do her work. So when they were awake, she was then able to function as a mother. And she finished her degree.
Fantastic.
So sometimes we can do that. The other thing I'll say, and I'll finish with this, and I'll let you maybe if you want to ask another question. I did this years ago, and I've never forgotten it. I did a time inventory. So I wanted to know what I was doing with my time. So I got sheets of paper, and I sectioned it off into 15-minute blocks. And the exercise was for a week, but I did it for 2 weeks. So 15-minute blocks, and you literally carry this thing around with you, and you write down how much time, in each 15 minutes, what you're doing. I did it for 2 weeks, and I'm embarrassed to say, 25 years on, and I can't remember the stats now, the amount of hours I spent watching the TV was embarrassing. It really, really was. And I don't mean it was 5 or 6 hours, it was 20 plus per week.
Wow.
And I started to think, what else could I do in those hours that's perhaps more productive and beneficial for me? So that's something, we might say, we've not got a lot of time. And maybe we haven't with the family and all the rest of work. But, what do we do for relaxation? Is it that we watch 5 or 6 hours a night of TV? If that is so, let's just say that, Lesley, let's use it as an example. You work really hard, you come in, you sort the kids out, and then you watch telly from 7 till midnight. You do that from Monday to Friday, and then Saturday you might do 6 or 7 hours TV. You're talking about over 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
What else could you do in that time that would be beneficial for you and help you to relax and to restore your body and that type of thing? So,
yeah. No, that's
just
excellent. Yeah, that's so true. That's so interesting, because there's so much more we can do with our time than sitting down in front of that TV. Get rid of what is it, Sky, Virgin, and all of those. Yeah. So yeah. And
you don't get your time back.
Exactly. You don't get your time back.
Again?
You don't get your time back. That's it, isn't it?
No, you don't. That's the thing. When you get to, I can't talk about you. You guys don't even look like you're 20 yet. But when you get to my age, I'm 64. I ain't got 64 years left.
Wow. You look fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dara, you know what? It's such an interesting subject, mental health, and I know there's, it's big and wide. There's all different things what lead to mental health, and I'm meant to be playing music because we're on the radio.
Play music.
We've been talking for an hour and I've played no music. So, Dalroy,
so
I'm going to, I know, exactly, be so engrossed in the conversation. So let me play some music for our audience.
Cool, please.
And Dalroy, we will be back talking to you. And if there's anybody out there, if you've downloaded the app, I'm going to check now, and you can actually be a part of the conversation. So what you need to do is go into the app, go to the 3 lines at the side, press that, and you will see a chat. If you go into the chat, then you can leave a message for Dr. Dalroy Hall, and he will answer those questions. I'll put those questions to him. And thank you, everybody, for being a part of the conversation. So I'm thanking you in advance. And let's hear some music. And what can we play? Thank you so much, Dalroy. So we are going to play, let's play some upbeat, Jerusalem. Welcome back, everyone. This is BHI Show on Passion Radio. And I am with
Marcia.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi.
And I'm Lesley. Marcia, at the beginning of the show, did you introduce yourself to everybody? Tell everybody who you are, what you're doing, why you're here.
Right, okay. And I didn't quite do that, actually. Okay. So I'll do that now. So, I'm Marcia Hilton. I am a coach, and I'm an accredited coach, and I specialise in supporting women breaking free from toxic relationships and helping them to create healthier new ones. And I do that through a compassion-based and trauma-informed way. I also work with organisations to help them become more trauma-informed.
Okay, wow. And how can people get in touch with you if they needed to get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me through LinkedIn. Actually, they can find me on LinkedIn, Marcia Hilton. They can email me on info@mhcoachingandconsultancy.com. So those are the 2 places. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram.
Yep, brilliant, like brilliant. No, thank you. And so if you're just joining us today, my name is Lesley, and you are listening to us on the BHI Show, Black Health Initiative. We are based in Leeds in Yorkshire. So if you ever anybody in Leeds, Yorkshire, Huddersfield, you want to pop round, then just pop in and say hello. If you want to do any volunteering, then please get in touch with BHI. If you want to send us any messages, then please contact us on our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can phone us on 0734 179 8948. Or you can phone us on our Leeds number 0113 3070 300. BHI is always looking for volunteers. So, just get in touch with us. Thank you. And today we are talking all about mental health, which is really interesting. And we're having that conversation with Dr. Dalroy Hall, who has been giving us some really, really good tips.
Indeed.
Regarding our mental health. And in fact, we should just quickly go over the tips if you've just joined the conversation. And basically, that if you're write things down, it's a good tip. Mm-hmm. And in your diary, break it down. So put 3 months of what you want to do, like self-love, or if you want to do something for yourself, write it down in your diary, pencil it out, block it out, and say, this is my time to look after my mental health and to look after my well-being. What was the other tips? I've forgotten now.
I think there was, I think it was really about seeking help. So if you know that you're about to crash or whatever, seek out the help that you need.
Yeah, definitely. definitely.
And learning to say no.
To say no. That was a fantastic one, because a lot of the time we take things on and we don't really want to do it.
Yeah.
But then, we're, what is it? People pleaser.
People pleasing, yeah.
Saying yes to everything.
Exactly.
And then you go away and you think, why did I say yes to that?
Exactly.
So learn to say no.
And oftentimes, actually, when you say no, I mean, it's like the fear of, I don't know, maybe being rejected by the other person. But I remember a scenario where I had to say no.
Yeah.
And I was dreading the response that I was going to get back. And the response was, okay.
You see?
So the fear was bigger than what actually, happened.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
We stress ourselves out, and then if we're just honest with ourselves, everything will work out.
Exactly.
But we don't want to disappoint other people.
Yeah.
But we're taking on them rather than looking after ourselves. So that's really interesting. That. So let's welcome back Dr. Delroy Hall to carry on our conversation regarding mental health. So welcome back, Dr. Delroy Hall. Am I all right calling you Dr. Delroy Hall?
Delroy's good,
Delroy's good.
Yeah.
We're all friends here,
I say to people, if you look at my birth certificate, you'll not see Doctor on it. You'll see Delroy. And
say that again, Delroy. If you look at my birth certificate, those of you from Jamaica who've got parents of a certain age and grandparents, you'll know what I mean. Our parents couldn't say certificate; they say certificate. I love that.
So if you look at my birth certificate, it says Delroy Wesley Hall on it.
So Delroy Hall, thank you so much for being here. In fact, Delroy, please tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, God.
Please.
Okay.
We haven't got too long, so just... No. I'm joking.
No. Well, the thing is, I was talking to somebody this morning. So, based in Sheffield, first generation Windrush. In fact, born in Nottingham, but lived in a place called Newark, farming town for 10 years. Then moved to Leicester when I was just before my 10th birthday, about a month before my 10th birthday. Stayed there till 37. You see the kind of DR in the front of my name, but I wasn't the brightest. Well, I don't know about school. School never worked for me, I don't think. I think I was part of the CSE project, which I then years later on, it was a kind of educational project by the government or the education system. And I didn't really do all that well when I left school, college. Took me a few times to get my O-levels. Took 2 A-levels, which I both failed. And then I didn't go to university until I was 38.
Wow.
So I'm a kind of late bloomer, really. And late bloomer, trained as a therapist when I was 28. So that's me. Been involved in sports since just before I left school. So I was a 400 meter hurdler, number 2 in Great Britain when I was 20. And I still have kept it. There was a time that I didn't do much, but I still keep fit now. Just getting out of bed. I'm not old at 64, but I can still cycle. I don't run now because of my hip, but I still cycle and can swim 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
Very interested in lifelong learning and interested in continue growing, really.
Absolutely.
So for certain things I just don't have the appetite to do, but learning new things, and certainly no longer being a pastor has been a real eye-opener in terms of friendship and so forth. It's been a real journey over the last 5.5 years. Well, no longer been a pastor in terms of church, but I'll always be a pastor.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
I'll always be a pastor, even if I don't have the title. My way of being is one of kind of care and all the rest of it. So yeah.
Okay.
That's me in a tiny nutshell.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that.
I've got twin girls as well. Well, not girls now. The women. They're 28 years old. Safan and Jordan. They're great women. They're fantastic.
Okay. Any grandchildren?
In April, my first one.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Grandpa Della wants to be. Wonderful. Yeah, I said to my daughter, if it's a boy, are you going to name him Delroy? She said, no way. He may, if it's a boy, he may have a middle. If the child's a boy, he may have the middle name Delroy. But you know.
Oh, that's lovely.
As long as the child is, you know, functioning and
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the
really
main
nice.
thing.
Yes, that's me in a very tiny nutshell. I got quite a long face, so I laugh a lot and joke a lot. So I'm quite approachable. So.
Well, I was going to say, how can people get in touch with you regarding your work?
Yeah, well,
if they wanted to talk to you on a private level.
Yeah, get me on Messenger, Dr. Delroy Hall on Facebook. That's a quick way that people get me. Dr. Delroy Hall on Facebook. Get me on Messenger, and then we'll have a conversation. I'll either, if I have the space, I'll see. If not, I can make referrals. I'm doing less counselling now, but doing far more training now around, some around EDI, equality, diversity, inclusion, but more about leadership.
Okay.
And also getting involved, doing more and more work now about racial trauma, racial healing, and stuff like that. So so it's interesting. I think one of the things I didn't realise, it's interesting work, and I didn't realise that when I trained as a counsellor that the skills are so transferable.
Yeah.
Since I've started working for myself, the amount of stuff that I've done has been incredible, really.
Wow.
And it was a friend of mine, Dr. Nena. I think she's known in Leeds. Dr. Nena Indueka. Yeah, we met at a conference. BHI held a conference a few years ago called Breaking the Cycle. I think it was about men and talking. The thing we're talking about today,
which is so important.
So Breaking the Silence. That's right. And I was the kind of lead coordinator. And there was a conference that Heather and Bridget had put on for BHI, and we met, Dr. Nena and I met, and we kind of kept in contact with each other. Then during lockdown, she said, do you want to meet online? So I said, yeah. And then I told her my plans of leaving the university. So she said, well, it's up to you how you do your practice. I said, well, how do you mean? She said, well, you can either stay in a room and wait for clients, or you can just do a variety of work. And that's what I did, and I really thanked her for it, because the work has been incredible. Loads of different work I've done, so I do thank her for it. So
So the conference you went on, what was it called? You said
It was called Breaking the Silence. It was about how it was really about engaging with men, black men, African men, Asian men, breaking the silence, men not talking. Literally, what we kind of partly discussing today. How do we break that? And it's interesting that I saw 2 or 3 men for therapy when I was doing stuff for BHI, and we had some kind of open days where kind of men came. But it's part of the. It's interesting because part of the bit that I did, the Leeds bit, was, and I didn't realise at the time, it's part of a wider project, which was the University of Central London, University Royal Holloway. And one of the things that came out from the research, I think the title of the research, you can find online, the social recovery for social pathways for the recovery of mental health for African and African Caribbean men. And one of the things that came out of the study from the men was that it was one of the reasons was the macho image that led to their breakdown.
Wow.
That's what they said, that it came up time and time again. Living up to this macho image led to their breakdown. So you had to be strong for the family and all this type of stuff. And they recognised that it was that. One of the biggest contributing factors, that's what led them to have the breakdown.
Wow. How do you think we can change that? Or what can we do to,
Well, people of my age, it's difficult. Maybe a bit younger. We need to start with the children.
Right.
So in a sense, start with the children, but then extend to the parents as well. So this is what we know. If children are raised in a home where emotions are spoken about, not just good emotions, but unpleasant emotions are spoken about, and they know that to talk about is okay, they grow up with a good understanding and a good experience of talking about unpleasant emotions. And this is what they've discovered. They make better partners in relationships. They do better in education, finance, careers. They're just better balanced people. And that's what we know through research and so forth. So I think my generation, I think it's difficult because it's a bit like learning, it's like learning a foreign language when you're in your 90s. You can do it, but it's hard. Whereas if you do it when you're 16, it's a lot easier. So I think for me, talking about emotions is a language that many of us haven't learned. And I've learned it through being a therapist. I've had to talk through stuff, and I've gone through stuff myself. But for lots of guys, they don't. Certainly my age and a bit younger, they tend not to talk about it.
Right.
Or you've got to get the mood really right. To send, the example that I said at the beginning.
Yes.
About engaging men in a group to talk about stuff. Before you can start talking about real deep issues, you need to build a level of trust.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm just thinking about the fact that as both of us. I'll speak for Mr. Yeah, we've got boys, and I was a single parent, and we're trying to do the right thing with them and to have those conversations. But I think sometimes, we're not men, so we're not able to, to have I don't know if it's the right conversations. I don't know with them, and so it just feels like there's a piece missing for them, and I think maybe this is where the community comes in. We need to do it as a community.
Yeah, we do, and there's another aspect as well, which somebody told me about a few years ago. And I remember it from my own father. So this is a scenario. So what I'll be saying to single mothers, are there men who you know who are trustworthy, who you can trust? And it's about then introducing, not as a substitute father, but for want of a better term, male role models who can...
Right.
Men who are grounded.
Yeah.
Men who are grounded. I remember once, I remember doing a baby blessing, and the woman the mother had asked certain guys to be godfathers, and they never showed.
Wow.
So I said to them, you need new godfathers. They can't turn up for this day.
Yeah.
You need new godfathers. Yeah. And I was very clear with her. I didn't say it in the service, but afterwards. So what happens in lots of cultures, and I know this in my own family when I was growing up. So what happens, I can't remember the age now, father and son start to play fight. But at some point it stops play fighting, and the young guy then gets serious and gets aggressive. The dad says, all right, now settle down. Yeah. What the dad is doing is teaching the son to manage his emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's cultural, right across different cultures. I can't remember the name of the book, but I know the person who referred it. If I said to her now, what's the name of the book, she could tell me. And I remember with my own father, we'd play fight, and then it loses a moment where it leaves play fighting, and then you get kind of really aggressive. And my dad went, because then I got really rough and throwing in licks and all the rest of it. And my dad would say, yeah, all right, now calm down. And what that is doing, that is teaching the male child to manage his emotions.
Wow.
If you don't have that, I suspect what happens is you get older, you've not had that control. When you get older, things happen because you've not learned how to manage your emotions.
Right.
Then you just keep.
Wow, that's so interesting.
It is.
If you know men who you can trust. So what happened when one of the churches when I was pastoring, there's a woman. Her husband had left, or the split anyway, and she got two boys, and they were quite boisterous. So what we did after one service, because the guys would kind of play around a lot in church, so after one service I got all the men together, and I spoke with the mother, I got all the men together, and we made a pact that the minute that she came into church, the boys went with one of us, and that's how we did it. So the boys grew up in church being around men.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're getting out of hand, we'd take them out and all the rest of it. So Dad wasn't there, but in a sense, the men in the church, in the community, acted as a kind of father figure, for these young guys. Now, I don't know what happened once I'd left, but certainly it was something that was done. So I say to any single mother that's out there, your brother, your uncle, a cousin, a guy who you know is grounded and you trust, he's got his head screwed on. He doesn't have to have gone to university, but he's level-headed.
Yep.
And maybe he's gone through some stuff himself. Yeah. But he's grounded. He's holding. For example, some of the indicators are he's holding down a good. He's not necessarily good. He's holding down a job. He's punctual. He's loyal. He's dependable. He's in a relationship, but he's not. He's with one woman. He's not with loads of other women at the same time. All the rest of it. He displays good character. Yeah. Not perfect, but displays good character. Have a chat with him, and maybe a few guys. And have conversations with them, and have a conversation with your son to say, this is what's going to happen. And allow a relationship to be developed between your son and these guys that are around. That will be the community at play, really.
That's so interesting. I just want to share really briefly, because I know we haven't got time short, but one of my sons did exactly that. I had to send him to my brother's. And I remember it was coming up to Christmas, and I was feeling really bad because I sent him away. But my brother says, "Bring him, come." And I said, if he doesn't come, he was going to come down in his car, fling him in the boot, and take him. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and he did take him, and it was Christmas and New Year came, and he was sleeping in till all hours and whatever. Day after New Year, my brother went in his room, tear back the quilt, and said, "Now you need to get up and go look work. You're not just lying down in my house." And my son was there for a good few years, you know, and that was fine. Yeah. You know, and I remember another time when I was living in Wolverhampton, one of my sons had a mental health problem, and he trashed my house this particular day. Wow. And there was an organisation that was there. It was a black organisation based in Wolverhampton. And I remember picking up the phone, and I called them, and I was so distraught, and I just said, you know, he's trashed my house. And then they said, okay, within 10 minutes, now this for me is like an example of, you know, good practice. Within 10 minutes, this van pulled up outside my house, and about 6 black men jumped out. They came in my house, they put back everything, fixed my doors, hung up back my pictures, did this, did that. They took my youngest son. One of them took him off to go do something nice. The others talked to, you know, my son that wasn't well, and it just relieved me. Yeah. You know, it just, I could breathe. Yeah. You know. So it's important as a community.
Definitely. That's a really good point.
Just in terms of what you just said, Marcia, it just reminded me of something. I wonder whether in the West we've adopted this idea that all a child needs is mum and dad. And I would say a child needs a community of people.
Absolutely.
So let me give you an example. I did a funeral last year, 2018, of a guy who took his own life, really, really sad. And there was a guy who gave a tribute, and he made a comment about if the guy's sons wanted to talk to him, he was there, and da-da-da-da-da. So I made a comment that I saw one of the lads, a few years before that, I saw one of the lads in town. Also, he should have been at school, and I called his dad. I said, "I've just seen your son in school." So this is a funeral kind of going on, and I remember saying to the young lad, he was now by this time he's grown up now, married, all the rest of it. I says, "Yes, Gareth, I talked to your father," and I says, "Yes, you know your teacher having a training there." So I said, "Why, you're lucky," and everybody kind of burst out laughing. But that's the kind of community looking after one another. So I know that 14-year-old boy should have been in school. What was he doing in town? Yeah. So let me just check. So he told me a story, and I had no reason to doubt him, but I just said, I remember phoning his dad the very same day, and his dad thanked me. Yeah. And that I think we're losing, and I just wonder whether this idea of just having mum and dad is enough. And I'll finish with this. In church, I recall clearly, and some of you will know this as well, a mother would come in with a baby, and she wouldn't see the baby until the end of the service. There was people in the church looking after the baby. Yeah. while the mother could actually engage in the service.
Yeah.
And it was just, and I didn't kind of notice it until when I started to kind of step back and look what was happening. It was the community at play, because within the church, of course, there's a kind of trusted community, and we kind of know if people are a bit edgy, or a bit, you can't put your finger on it, we kind of steer clear from them. But I remember mothers coming in with babies, usually a few months old, because then some of them would stay in until maybe 2 or 3 months. And the mother wouldn't see the baby until either she heard the baby cry, or somebody came up to the baby, see the baby needs changing or food. Mother wouldn't see the baby for the rest of the service. Wow. But the baby was being cared for in the community. And as far as I know, in all the years I've been in, no abuse went on. I've never heard of, even years later, I've never heard of anything that was unsavoury. So there was a community of people that kind of looked after children. So I just wonder whether this Western model of just mum and dad, I just wonder whether it's actually inadequate.
Well, in my opinion, I don't think it's adequate. I think we should, I think the community is where it's at, and we've lost it. And I think, and this is just my opinion, and I think this is probably why we've got a lot of the young people, sort of out of control and doing what they're doing, because we, the elders, have lost what community is. So in a way, we kind of failed them, haven't we? In some senses.
Yeah, do you think so? Wow.
Because we've lost the community feel.
Right. Okay. So
that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Though. But how do we get that back then? What do we do about that? How do we rebuild our communities?
I actually think, because we've seen so much trauma in our communities, it feels as if people are tired,
right?
And people are wanting that again. And I'm praying that people will come together. We come together more as a community to rescue our young people. As a community, we can all heal together. However that might look like, it might mean different things for different people. But I think it's about, I'd like to think that we are, especially our age group, and perhaps, and even the younger ones, I think people, we just want different. We're tired.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think in a sense we have lost a lot of the community feel. But there's a friend of mine in Canada, and I don't know whether he started it, but they've started kind of small groups of men. And he said what happens, they meet up once a month just to talk, and then over a period of time, then almost as though other individuals are trained, who then start their own groups. But he said what happened one time, he remembers being in the group, one of the young guys spoke about how he roughed up his girlfriend, and the other guys just jumped on him. They told him you can't operate like that. So he come to this meeting think he can kind of brag off to the guys, that whatever happened between him and his girlfriend, and he I don't know whether he hit her, but he certainly he roughed her up. However, he understood that. But my friend said, Delroy, so we jumped on him. We just said to you can't deal with that. So having those groups can be really, really helpful, because it's quite clear the guy. I don't know if it's quite clear, but certainly that's how he felt. That's how he should be operating. Right. But these older men said to him, no, you can't operate that way. You don't rough up your partner. So I think it's maybe small groups, which in a sense is a community. Small groups of men banded together who talk with each other, who help each other out.
Yeah.
That can be a way. Whether or not I don't think we would ever have our parents were very, very tight. I guess conditions were really difficult, so they had to be. And in a sense, things are not as difficult, so we kind of relaxed off a bit. But those small groups of men or women, I think, are really, really important.
Yeah, so setting up like different small groups to have these conversations.
Yeah, around food.
Yeah, so would that
absolutely. I think that would.
Okay.
It's a way. There could be other ways as well.
Yeah,
there's a big thing now around barbershops, isn't there, about men and barbershops, and certainly in Sheffield and in other parts of the country, that barbershops are seen as kind of therapeutic communities or therapeutic centres where men will talk. Okay. And certainly I heard guys talking about prostrate cancer.
Fantastic.
About 2 years ago. Young guys as well. Years ago, you would never have heard them talk about it.
Yeah.
But they were talking about it very open and publicly in the barbers.
Wow.
Right.
That's excellent.
That's so
because,
good.
that's why we want a Black Health Initiative. We want to get our young people, our young men, talking to us and not being so, not scared, but to express themselves.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with my son, and he's 30, and I said, what is it with guys, why they don't open up? And his response to me was, Mum, it's okay here in this space, we can have those conversations, but out there, you can't do that out there, because you'd be looked at differently. If you was to express your emotions. I was like, really?
Yeah. However, if you have a tight-knit group, and in a sense, you're not sworn to secrecy, but you keep everything in.
Yeah.
And if stuff leaks out, you jump on them.
Yeah.
Because what we want is people to be able to talk. Because one of the reasons why counselling can work quite well is that people can talk in confidence.
Yeah.
And it won't be kind of out on the street and stuff like that. So it's a group, and almost like there's a, not contract, but there's a when Sam Sharp, the Baptist deacon that led the revolt in 1831, he had this thing about kissing the Bible. It was an oath. So it's almost like you take an agreement out that anything that's spoken about in this group, this is where it remains. So the English folks will talk about, is it Chatham House rules? But the guards will get together and say, look, whatever's spoken about in this group, however, if it means that we need to speak to the authorities because stuff's going on, we need to do that. So there has to be a level of safety.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything that's spoken about in this group remains here.
Wow.
You don't tell it to your wife, you don't tell it to your children. What happens in this group?
Yeah. Well, I've been BHI. We started this a walking group, and it's opened up for everybody, to actually join it. But the men don't seem to want to join it. They don't want to come out and be a part of it, So it's like, how do you actually get men involved in different activities in the communities?
We're odd breed.
You said it.
Yeah, they could have their own walking group, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So say again.
Their own walking group. Well, Black Men's Walking Group.
Sheffield, it started off as an all-male walking group.
Okay.
Oh.
It started off, now they have the partners there, but it started off for quite a few years. An African guy called, what's his name now? Max. Yeah, he started it.
Oh, okay.
The first Saturday of each month.
Wow.
Black men just gathered and they walked all over the place.
Wow.
That's really good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. He's his PhD and whatever, he's really into the environment and nature.
Right.
So in a sense that was, but also just never going back to what you said earlier on. You asked a question about kind of looking after ourselves. They say that nature is a second Bible.
Oh.
So actually being in nature can be really helpful in restoring people's well-being and mental health.
But it's getting them out. It's getting them out. It's that first step.
Yeah, it is, and it's quite difficult. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you put an event on, but the event has a combination of activities. I don't know. This is an idea that's come to us. I don't know if it works or not. There's a combination of activities. The guys sign up for a weekend. Again, there's food around it, and you do stuff together and walk in maybe one of them.
Yeah. No,
a retreat for men or something. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. A retreat for men. I like that. I like that. Yeah, that's good. Delroy, it's been brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much for your time and all the tips that you've given us. Is there anything what you would like to leave with us? Tell us before we actually say bye.
Yeah. There was something you said earlier on, and I've completely forgotten what it was now, and what I was going to suggest. But just in terms of maintaining good mental health, I can't remember what it was now, so I completely So my apologies.
Okay.
I've got a quick question, and it was to do when you mentioned, when we're seeking out help, and counselling being, just to seek that out. I'd love your opinion. Do you think that when we are seeking out counselling, especially in the black community, that the counsellor needs to look like us?
So I say again,
like the counsellor who we find looks like us, or no?
Well,
or does it matter?
It depends. So let me give you an example. Very quickly. There was we were at a conference a few years ago. There was an African brother who spoke about his attempts at suicide, and the organisation who got him some counselling had a male therapist. That didn't work because he saw the therapist as his dad, which the relationship with his dad wasn't very good. And then they had a black female therapist. That didn't work, he said, because I saw her as my auntie, so how could I be sharing stuff with my auntie? And he said it was a middle-aged white Welsh woman who was not connected with my community whatsoever. I could really open up to her. So that's one experience. That's one example. The other, of course, is that sometimes I've heard over the years that when people go to see a white therapist, they're so disconnected from the community, you end up explaining so much, which then hinders the therapy. So, as I say, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. You can have a white therapist, and I know white therapists who are absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
You can tell they work through their own stuff around race and so forth. They're very comfortable with you, and then you'll know that some people are not. Yeah. And maybe what you may need to do, you try a few therapists, and what does your gut tell you?
Yeah.
If you have a therapist who, as my friend said, he had a therapist, and my friend raised the issue of race, and the guy then said to him, "It works both ways, Well, that was the end of the therapy before he even started. So I think I would say with this, there's all the skills and stuff, but go with your gut. I would say go with your gut. It could be that you work with somebody who's white, who's really, really good. And then you can work with somebody who's black, is absolutely rubbish.
Yeah.
So I'd say just have 1 or 2 sessions with it, maybe maybe 2 or 3, and then see how it goes.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
That people have choice, and it's about what feels, what's going to resonate with them, and what's going to get the job done at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant question there, Marcia. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time. It's been brilliant. And so if anybody out there who've got any questions for Dr. Delroy Hall, then please get in touch. You can get in touch with Delroy on LinkedIn or Facebook, or you can get in touch with BHI on our social media platforms, which is Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, or Facebook. And you can phone us on 0734 179 8948, or you can phone us on our landline, which is 0113 307 0300. Right, Delroy, thank you so much for your time. And we'll catch up soon. Thank you, Delroy.
Thank you, Delroy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And to our audience, let's play you another song. What should we have, Marcia? What song do you like? We didn't ask Delroy. I didn't ask Delroy what song. I know. I should have asked Delroy.
Optimistic by Sounds of Blackness, if you got it.
What? Say that again, Delroy.
Optimistic.
Optimistic by Sounds of Blackness.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have a look for that one.
Let's have a look. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, let's just play this. Oh, hang on a minute. Right, Marcia, let's ask a question, because we need to find some music. And while we're looking for the music, what did you think of the show today?
No, I thought it was fabulous. It was fabulous. It was I thought it was quite insightful. informative, and it made me think about my own mental health. And as I was saying earlier, it's probably, I think we have those times when I'm feeling low.
Yeah.
We all go through that, but it's, there's some really good ways that we could, manage all of that. So yeah.
Okay. And what about the tips, what he gave us? I thought that was, really interesting as well.
Yeah, it was. They were.
And hopefully it's easy enough for everybody out there to actually, to use the tips there if they're going through, different challenges.
Absolutely.
And that, so, no, that's brilliant. Okay, then. So, again, thank you so much, Dr. Delroy Hall. And we are going to play your song for you, Optimistic Sounds of Blackness.
I love that song. I haven't heard it for a while.
Yeah? Okay, let's hear it. Thank you.